I could give you a lot of different ways the wide receiver room shakes out for 2025. I could see Jurion Dickey having a role. I could see Jurion Dickey not having a role. I could see Justice Lowe, who I talked about yesterday, having 400 to 500 yards. I could see him having 100 yards by the end of the season. So I wanted to discuss this with you, Max, because I'm too far down the rabbit hole. I need someone to pull me out and just settle things down. I tell you right now, give me with 3 receiver spots, 2 outside guys, X and Z, and then the slot position. Who do you think are the top 6 Oregon receivers, and who fills out the 2 deep?
Oh, top 6. Okay. I need to be better about, hammering down the X, Y, and Z specifically. But I think we definitely have to throw a guy like Gary Bryant Jr. in there because he's been around a lot, and I think it's just about him being healthy more than anything. And Dacorian Moore is going to be in that mix, I think. We haven't seen a wide receiver at Oregon this hyped since I don't even know who.
Never. He's the highest rated Oregon receiver recruit ever. The previous high was Cameron Colvin back in, I think it was the '06 class, kind of '05, '6, '7 range. And Cameron Colvin was a fine player, but he did not live up to that billing.
Yeah. So I think Dacorian's in there. And then you also have Malik Benson probably somewhere in there, the Florida State transfer, Kyler Casper, Justice Lowe, and
Evan Stewart.
Evan Stewart. Obviously, I have to put Evan Stewart in there as well. Thank you. I don't know if that was quite 6, but I think those are probably the Jeremiah McClellan, I think, is another one we have to talk about as well. I'm going to be very interested to see how much of him we see on the field for Ross Douglas come fall.
Yeah, so that's what I find to be most interesting is I wonder what information the staff has right now about this position group going into spring practice or as it unfolds. Obviously, we know at this point with Dan Lanning and the staff, they're not going to give us anything, right? We can sit here and prognosticate about it from now until the season begins when we will actually know, because I don't think the spring game will give us a clear indication. It'll give us information, but it won't give us a concrete 2 deep necessarily. But you think about the slot receiver position. I can see 3 guys being the starter, quite frankly, at the slot position spot. Justice Lowe filled in for Tez Johnson when he got hurt against Michigan, and he had 6 receptions in that game, which was the most he'd had in a game in his Oregon career. And remember, Justice Lowe's going into his 4th year of college football. He's a redshirt junior, so he's plenty acclimated to college and the playbook. It's his 3rd year with Will Stein as offensive coordinator. Yeah, he's got a new receivers coach, but the verbiage and everything is not going to change. So he knows all of that. Then you have Gary Bryant, who's also a 5th year player who was a borderline 5-star receiver coming out of high school. And then you've got Dacorian Moore. I think the popular answer for fans, and quite frankly for myself, is I want it to be Dacorian Moore because of all the potential he has. But is he good enough to step in with as much hype as he has, Max? Is he good enough to just step in day one and be the starting slot receiver over 2 guys who have a combined 9 years of college football experience? I think, Gary Bryant started, I think, in 2020. So this would actually be his 6th year, 10 years. Yeah, 10 years of experience between those 2. Is Dacorian that much better? I think that's a steep hill for him to climb.
It could be, but everything I've heard about him is that he's the real deal, like a legitimate 1st-round talent, which Oregon hasn't had at the wide receiver position, whether you think Troy Franklin should have been drafted there or not. Best receiver that they've had in program history. Tez Johnson is certainly in there from a production standpoint as well. Jeff Mail, there you go. But I think that, I don't know, it's going to be interesting to see not only if Dacorian Moore can play to that level, but if the staff can make that decision, because I think that requires a certain level of confidence and certainty as well, because we just haven't seen young wide receivers take on that large of a role at Oregon. I guess Troy Franklin kind of did, but we all know about the Cristobal offense and how they refuse to pass the ball sometimes. But I think I've got all the excitement, anticipation, and lofty expectations of the world for Dacorian, and I think he's going to be able to be everything that people thought he was coming out of high school.
Yeah, and Franklin was a borderline 5-star, and I remember the phrase that we were talking about coming out of that Alamo Bowl was unleash the skinnies, him and Dante Thornton. And Thornton went on, by the way, most of the guys that transfer out of Oregon don't go on to find super successful spots. Dante Thornton's one of the exceptions to that generalized rule. He went to Tennessee, did really well. He ran at the NFL Combine, I think like a four.
Flew.
I think he ran like a
flew at the
4.
combine.
Didn't he run like a 4.27 or he ran
that or like a 4.33 or something?
Yeah, he ran something really fast. Like he turned out to be a really good player for the Vols. But again, that freshman year for Troy Franklin, he was not a big part of the offense. He was not one of the top receivers. His second year he was. And the only player in the history of Oregon football, different position of course, that's a higher rated recruit than DeCorian Moore Max is Kayvon Thibodeau. And if you even look at his true freshman season, now there's more physical adaptation required and adjustment when you're playing defensive line than when you're playing receiver. But even Kayvon Thibodeau, who was worth the hype across the board, no doubt about it, he did not start right away in his college career with the Ducks. And I have wondered more than a couple times, and will continue to wonder until we see it play out, is that what we see with DeCorian? Is it a Gary Bryant or a Justice Lowe? And Justice Lowe could play on the outside too. He's 6'1". He's skinnier, but he's 6'1". He could play out there. Is it Gary Bryant at first, and then once DeCorian learns the playbook really well, gets settled to the college lifestyle and the college game and all that sort of stuff, he's the guy by the end of the year? Or does it end up being a true split? Or does DeCorian Moore have 300 yards receiving this year and we say, nope, his sophomore year is when he pops for 1,000 yards or more?
Yeah, it remains to be seen how much we're going to see of DeCorian. I think that the opportunity, you couldn't ask for a better one.
I agree.
I think that the top end experience that you have is Evan Stewart, Gary Bryant, and Malik Benson. But really, I think that Evan Stewart is probably the most productive of those guys. Gary Bryant is in there as well, but it's wide open. I'm also excited about Cooper Perry, Dylan Gresham, a couple of other wide receivers, some younger guys in that room. I'm excited to see what they can do, and I think I want to see everyone get a shot, and that's really what the spring game is going to be.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of the most interesting position groups to watch, along with secondary, which we're going to talk about to wrap up today's show. The other thought I've had about the receiver room, Max, I think someone will transfer out in the spring portal window. I'd actually be kind of surprised if somebody does. There are just so many players in that room. They're not all going to play. Maybe a bunch of them don't, and they expect to go the Justice Lowe route and wait, until his third year of college is when he actually started playing at all, and that was only because of an injury. Maybe some guys are okay with that. All right, I would not be shocked if a Perry or heck, even a McClellan, if he doesn't fly his way up the depth chart a little bit, or a Casper or a Dick. Like if one of those guys, do I sound crazy? Because to me it seems perfectly logical that the receiver room could see a transfer departure.